evening of your time as you create time to exist. We begin this interaction this evening of your time with the laying down of a few foundational ideas to provide some commonality for the idea of this interaction. First of all, from our perspective and what we wish to convey to you this evening of your time is that everything in existence is, in a sense, the product of difference in what you call frequency. Therefore, every object, every being, every idea of which you are aware is of varying frequency, and indeed the idea of its individualized frequency is what, in a sense, determines what it is that it is. And therefore, each object does display a particular frequency, a different particular frequency. And indeed, this is what, in a sense, allows you to discern one idea from another. For the idea of what you call God, what we call all that is comprised of all that is. And, in a sense, very fundamentally, one homogeneous substance. It is this one homogeneous substance which you may refer to as white light, although our definition of white light varies and includes many aspects that yours does not. What you consider to be the idea of light is but a mere minuscule portion of the idea of light, but in fact, infinite creation in and of itself is light, is unconditionally loving light. And in a very real sense, each and every one of you are a particular individualized manifestation of the idea of this light, broken down in various and different and unique and individualized ways. Therefore, we shall briefly discuss with you, to begin this interaction, some of the ideas of what has become to be called within your society, how this light is broken down, and how in fact you are created or do create yourself from this light. But first, we will begin with a brief discussion on the idea of what you call your senses. You have in your society discovered what you have called your 5 physical senses. From our perspective, you have, in fact, 7 physical senses and an 8th transcendental sense. Your understanding of your first 5 senses, your sense of hearing, your sense of sight, your sense of smell, taste, and, as you say, touch, are 5 physical senses. And you have surmised that there may be the idea of this ominous 6th sense. From our perspective, that indeed is the 7th sense, but we will cover that in a moment. Your 6th sense, your 6th physical sense, is the idea of what we have labeled orientation, spatial orientation. The mechanism within your physical body for this idea, although there are several locations involved, the one you have brought to light and find most popular, as you say, is your inner ear. In fact, the major constituent of this sense, this 6th orientational sense, is the idea located in your sinus cavities. That is, within the idea of your sinus cavities, coming to light within your society, even at this time, the idea of a substance which is labeled or called in your vernacular magnetite. This substance is indeed what the animals upon your planet do use in what you have labeled homing instinct. It is the substance that does allow you to tune into, in your own particular way, the electromagnetic field that does surround and encompass and is indeed within your planet. Many of you have noticed that you either do or don't have a good sense of direction. For instance, many people always know which direction they are facing. It is this sense which does allow this idea. Many people also never know which way they are facing, and this is the negative application of that same sense. But it is still there, and it is still your choice to use it in whichever way you do desire. The idea of what we call your seventh sense, vibrational discernment, is most closely related to that which you have labeled your sixth sense. For by being able, in a sense, to realize that you can discern differences in vibration, you do indeed enable yourself communication with other beings, with other consciousness, understandings and identification with others by discerning their vibration. If you do choose to match and don, as you say, these vibrations, you do have what you have labeled the idea of very much empathy toward the source of that discernment. And therefore, what you have labeled your sixth sense of extrasensory perception, or what you have called clairvoyance, is very much indeed the seventh sense of vibrational discernment. The physicalized counterpart, or what you call aspect of your body that is most related to this idea, just as the idea of your magnetite within your sinus cavities related to the sixth sense of orientation, is your glandular system, primarily within your brain, the idea of what you have labeled your pineal gland. This indeed is the physicalized mechanism for being able to discern and tune into differences in vibration. The, what we may label, eighth transcendental sense, completing the octave that you are, is indeed the idea of knowingness. The idea of, with no analytical thought whatsoever, just simply knowing an idea. Very often you will find, without having, as you say, the benefit of analysis, you simply know an idea. This is indeed that sense. This is indeed a direct identification with your, as you have labeled, higher self, which is very aware that it is part and parcel of all that is, and in fact has access to all the information, all the ideas within all that is. When you do pipe into an aspect of this knowingness, you are exercising your eighth transcendental sense of knowingness. One of the ideas within the idea of vibration is not only that it allows you to discern between one object and another, one person and another, one idea and another, but also as a physicalized manifestation of your own higher consciousness, you do, according to your actions, vibrate at certain rates. Your actions do indeed determine your vibration. And you can only experience a reality that you are the vibration of. Therefore, by changing your actions, you do indeed then change your vibration. When you change your vibration, you then are allowed or allow yourself to then attract a reality that corresponds to the idea of your new vibration. Because in effect, although you have the saying, opposites attract, and indeed this may be loosely correct and applicable in a magnetic sense, in the sense of vibration, it is much more the idea that like attracts like. So again, this boils down to the idea we have shared with you, that you can only experience a reality that you are the vibration of. Therefore, if you are not satisfied, if you are not happy, if you are in some sense disheartened by your reality, then a change in your vibration will change your reality. Flawlessly, this mechanism does operate. And in fact, although many of you are hard-pressed to believe this idea, you are perfectly and flawlessly creating your reality right now. Very often, you are creating it in such a way that you give it an apparency that it is controlling you, that you are within it. But the paradox lies within the idea that you are creating that apparency. The apparency that you are not creating it. You are always a 100% being. You are always creating 100% of your reality, and we mean that literally, not figuratively, not nice philosophy, literally, physically creating your reality. Always using the idea of 100% of your being. Even if you are using 90% to make it seem as though you are only using 10. This is a propensity within your society. And in fact, the current trend within your scientific thought is that you only use some small percentage of your brain. No, this is not true. You always use 100% of your brain. Maybe that your scientific data, your scientific equipment is not in a sense sensitive enough or does not measure certain particular frequencies to allow one to come up with such a premise. But in fact, it is very similar to the divisions you have made within your own personalities. You are always a 100% being, always able to access 100% of yourself. But within your exploration of using 90% to make it seem as though you are only using 10, you have come up with very many convenient labels for what you have divided yourself up into compartments. Subconscious, unconscious, superconscious, ego structure, superego, id, etc. However, they are merely that, labels, ideas, things which allow you to give your responsibility for the creation of your life away to the label. Well, it's only my subconscious mind. I'm not really responsible for what's going on. Yes, you can create it that way. You have done so very masterfully. You are perfect creators. Even if you choose to create misery, it is perfect misery. And therefore, again, we suggest and propose to you this idea that you are 100% being, and merely by choosing to view yourself in that way, you may experience that reality. It is that simple. While we are on the subject of how simple it is, may I say to you, another idea we have observed within your society is that it is not that simple. Things must be difficult. You must strive. You must stress. You must work. You must pay your dues. No pain, no gain. All right, you can have it that way. But in fact, the reality that it is that simple has just as much validity. We are not saying that your physical universe, your situational universe, the interconnectedness of all things is not complex, is not rich. However, it need not be complicated to perceive. There are complexities, there is richness, but anything can be that simple with that simple realization. By simply validating that that viewpoint may be possible, you then give yourself equal choice to choose between one reality and another reality. Another propensity that we have seen upon your planet is your tendency toward deciding in many or most situations that it must be this or that. It's got to be this, can't be that, it's this. It's got to be this, it can't be that, it's this. It is this or that. All right? Again, everything is real, and we grant validity to all realities. However, one other alternate approach to this idea is that it is this and that. This and that. This or that takes away your ability to choose one or the other. You must choose this or that. No. If you realize that it is this and that, you have equal ability to choose. Therefore, when asked the question, Bashar, what is the ultimate truth? The ultimate truth is composed of all truths, all realities. No one ultimate truth, or if it did not include all truths, it would not be the truth. Therefore, realize everything is real. Everything has validity. It is this and that. One of the things that we propose again to you is that by making the idea of slight changes in your approach, slight changes in your perception, you will have a grand sweeping change in your reality. Very often, with the this or that philosophy, you will choose to see when you have made a change within your existence, the idea that it is the same old existence with a little change. We perceive that when you do make but a small change, the entire reality does change. Now, you can't say it's this or that. It is same reality, small little change. Or you can say it is same reality, small little change, or small little change changes the whole reality. Once you equalize them, once you grant them equal validity, you can then choose between them. Realize, if you have a cube, all sides are blue. You then paint one side of that cube red. You may choose to say, oh, it is just the same old cube with a slight facelift on one side. Or you may realize it is an entirely different cube. If you decide same cube, slight facelift, you act in one particular way. If you choose to believe different cube altogether, you act a different way. So your perception, what you buy into, what you most strongly associate with, determines your attitude that you carry with you when you perform action. And again, as we have said, it is the action which does affect, change, and or perpetuate your reality the way it is. Therefore, when realizing you have made a change, you are a different person, you may then choose, instead of acting like the same person with a small, slight different change, to realize you are a different person. And then situation comes along. In your past, the person that you were would have dealt with it in a particular way. Now you view yourself as a new person and ask yourself, how would this new person handle the situation? You will handle that situation differently and then experience the idea of whole new person. Starts out on a cognitive level, but you can bring it all the way down to the idea of this reality and manifest it. We have said very often, within your explanations and growth toward the idea of higher consciousness, you have chosen the idea of positivity. This is indeed the approach that we feel will facilitate your growth. However, we wish to make an addendum to that idea. Very often, when choosing to live a positive lifestyle, it is accompanied by the idea of getting rid of all the negative, getting it out of there, pushing it away, no more negative. In a sense, what that is doing is invalidating the negative. In order for things to be equal and allow you the ability to make equal choices, you must have them be equal ideas. By granting invalidation to an idea, you change that equality. There is no longer an equality. Paradoxically, by deciding that bad is bad and I must push it away, you do not lower its validity. You strengthen its validity. The harder you push it away, the stronger it can bounce back. In a sense, there is nowhere to push it to. You are the entire universe. Where are you going to send it? It is all within you. The alternative to these ideas is to grant validity to the negativity. Doesn't mean you prefer it. Doesn't mean you'll manifest it. But you do realize that you are within a universe, a physicalized universe, within which is the exploration of polarity, positive, negative. You can explore both these ideas. You do not have to, however, manifest both of these ideas. One of the other thoughts we have noticed a penchant for is the idea of balancing in this regard. You must have X amount of bad to balance out X amount of good. Oh, things are going very well. Can't last too much longer. Things are going very bad. They will be good soon. Things are going very well for 10 minutes. I must get 10 minutes of visiting to balance it out. All right? You can do it that way. However, you don't have to manifest the negativity. And again, paradoxically, the key to being able to choose the positive is by not invalidating the negative. The phrase would go simply like this. You perceive negative circumstance, and you would say, I see a negative circumstance. Obviously, it is real, or I would not perceive it. I grant validity to that negative circumstance. However, I do not prefer it, I do not choose it, and will not proceed with it as a premise. May seem like the same thing as you have said, living your positive life and pushing the negative away, but it is a very different idea. Granting validity to all is what allows you to then choose all. By putting everything on equal footing, equal ground, that gives you equal ability to choose between these ideas. Therefore, we never, in our society, from our approach, invalidate anything. In a sense, what this does boil down to, as you have said, is the idea of unconditional love. For the idea of unconditional love is simply your total identification with anything that you do perceive for what it is, not invalidating it, not saying, I have conditions. If you fill these conditions, I will love you. If you do not fulfill these conditions, I will not love you. That is conditional love. That is not the idea that we speak of. The idea of unconditional love is the substance of all that is, God. God is unconditional love. He does, in a sense, and we mean colloquially when we say He, grant you such unconditional love to allow you to create as much misery, strife, and worry as you wish, to allow you to create the idea of lack of deservability for all that you can get, and still loves you just the same. By allowing you to do these things, that is unconditional love. This may seem a bit paradoxical, we understand. Are you following along so far with this idea?
Yes.
Again, unconditional love is an identification, is granting validity. They are one and the same. Not having conditions placed upon, accepting other realities, allowing your belief system to allow the belief systems of others, even if those same belief systems exclude yours. Very often many philosophies within your society are mutually exclusive, mutually exclusionary. This is the only way. If you are not doing this, you will not make it. There is only one way. From our perspective, if there was only one way, there would only be one person. Look around. There are many of you. There are many ways. They are all valid, and paradoxically granting validity to these other ways, allowing them to exist, realizing they are simply wonderful, creative, other points of view of all that is, allows you to be granted validity from all that is. In a sense, what we speak of is the idea of judgment. You have within your vernacular the saying, judge not lest you be judged. Very often we perceive that this statement has been misunderstood by your society. Does not mean the universe will judge you. The universe is non-judgmental. The universe is unconditional. But what we perceive to be the only law of creation, the only law that does govern all aspects of existence, is what you put out, is what you get back. What you have called, as you sow, so shall you reap. If you put out the idea of judgment, you become the vibration of judgment. You can only experience a reality you are the vibration of. Understand?
Yeah.
Therefore, as you do cease to judge and validate, you will notice you are ceasing to be judged, to be invalidated. It's two sides of the same coin, and it works very nicely in this regard. We spoke earlier of the idea of the white light of creation, and that each and every one of you are aspects of this light broken down in various ways. We shall now expound slightly upon this idea by presenting to you the visualization of a prism, a three-sided prism, that in fact each and every one of you are. The three sides of that prism do comprise what you have labeled your persona, your personality, your individualized self. One and all are the same thing. The three sides of the prism of your personality are as follows: belief systems, emotion, and thought patterns. These are the consciousness-related ideas with which you do create your physical reality. The varying degrees and percentages and proportions of one of these ideas to another are what determine your individuality. And in fact, a slight change in any of these ideas does in fact change your entire reality. You can't choose to look at it as a slight change, same old reality. But in fact, you can also realize it changes your entire reality and act that way. To, again, delineate belief systems, in a sense, can be considered the idea of the blueprints of your life, of your reality. Emotion, energy motion, can be looked at as the activating mechanism. Using the analogy of blueprint for a belief system, you may, in a sense, consider the idea of emotion, energy motion, as the builders. Then you have your idea of thought patterns. These may be viewed as the tools with which you create your reality. Any change in any one of these aspects of the prism of the being that you are changes your reality. If, for instance, you change your thought forms, you may have the same blueprints, you may have the same builders, but in fact the tools do change. If you do change the idea of your emotion, your energy, motion, emotion, then you will have similar tools, similar blueprints. But in fact, your helpers, your workers, your activation mechanism will vary, may build a little bit slower, a little bit faster, with different nuances, etc. Also, the idea of your belief systems, the blueprints, changing them, needless to say, changes the whole house. You may have the same builders, you may have the same tools, but you do have a different house. And in a sense, that does change what the builders are building, therefore changes the builders in a sense, changes what the tools are being used for, and in a sense, the tools. So most fundamentally, belief systems changing change the blueprint of your reality. Again, changing any one of these aspects, and even the most minute amount, will produce, or can, if you allow it, if you create it that way, a grand, sweeping change in your reality. In appreciation for your willingness to co-create this interaction with us, for your willingness to partake and share of this aspect of our consciousness, which not only represents our planet, which in your language, although we have no language as such, from our ancient language, when we did, would translate into the idea of espouses, which translated into your language becomes place of living light. We are Sasani, living light, and hence we have named our planet the same. I and we do represent our planet. However, you are not the only ones out there. There is what we are currently involved in and have been for, as you say, a long time, an association of planets, labeling somewhere in the neighborhood of 470 civilizations, with which we also do interact, and which, in a sense, are present or have priviness to these interactions. So, in return for your willingness to act as ambassadors of your civilization, and allowing me to act as ambassador for our respective civilization, I ask you now, how may I be of service to you?